And then the other way that you can tell that's two-year-old behavior is that if I don't accept the identity that you're imposing me on subjectively, you'll have a tantrum. It's like, yeah, I knew you were two, and now you just proved it. And I'm actually kind of sad about this, because one of the things I have noticed as a clinician is that a lot of this emergent identity confusion that particularly characterizes adolescents, and at the moment particularly adolescent young women, is likely a consequence of stymied childhood play after the age of about 4. Peers are. That's partly why adolescents are so absolutely obsessed with what their peers think of them, which is appropriate, even though it can go too far, is because your peers are going to make up your society, right, as you all mature together, and you have to adapt to the circumstances of your peers, and the parents should pave the road for that adaptation, but you make friends, and then your peers play with you, and they socialize you optimally. Aggressive 2-year-old male usually doesn't get socialized between the age of 2 and 4 because aggressive males are harder to socialize. Doesn't make friends, done. And the reason seems to be that, well, imagine that at 4 you need to start making friends. And because you make friends, you start to develop more and more social sophistication. But then imagine you don't make friends. You're already so far behind that you don't make friends. And now all your peers are skyrocketing forward. And so you just fall farther and farther behind, and you get more alienated and still using 2-year-old aggression to solve your problems, and more bitter and more cynical and more jaded, more isolated. And of course, that's not going to do wonders for your popularity. And you got to ask yourself too, like, how do you want your children to be treated when they go out in public? You know, most people will give children the benefit of the doubt. One of the things that was so lovely, I lived in Montreal when I first had young kids. And I lived in a rough neighborhood. It was a working class neighborhood. It was quite poor. Most of the people were uneducated in sort of multi-generational way. It was a rough neighborhood. And we had Michaela, my daughter, and we used to zoom around in her stroller. And it was so fun because you'd see these rough guys walking down the street, you know, tough looking guys. You'd give them a bit of a berth on the street, generally speaking, and they just break into a smile and, you know, coochie-coo her, and it brings out the best in people. It's so lovely to see that. It's one of the things that you don't know before you become a parent, is that you become a parent, you enter this little club of other parents that you didn't even know existed, but you also get to see the best of people in a way you never did before, and that's lovely. And so people are willing to give your children the benefit of the doubt. You want to facilitate that by having your child act in a manner that heightens the probability that that's how people are going to act towards them. And then instead, you know, a misbehaving child, I've had plenty of experience with this sort of thing in all sorts of ways. A misbehaving child lives in a world of adult falsity because nobody really wants the child around. And so everywhere they go, there are forced and strained smiles and bare tolerance. That's a little bit of hell, that is. And the alternative is, well, your child is properly socialized. And everyone's happy to have them around, and then wherever they go, everyone's happy to have them around. Partly because maybe you're wrong about what you want. You know, and you know that because you're kind of narrow and maybe narrowly self-serving from time to time, and your purview of the world isn't as wide as it could be, and you're a bit bitter, so you tend to be that narrowly selfish because of that. And so you want something from a conversation, and you bend and twist it to get it. It's like, fine, but maybe you'll get something you don't want. Or worse, you'll get something that's positively bad for you. That happens a lot. And so part of the reason there's a deep moral injunction to tell the truth in a religious sense is because there's a hypothesis behind that, which is there isn't anything better that can happen to you than what will happen to you if you tell the truth. Like, this is a sophisticated thing to do. It's not careless. It doesn't mean just say any old thing that pops into your head.